Hi everybody, I'm Brian with Knox Company and I'm going to show you how to install your reverse osmosis system. This system right here is from Shell Water Systems. I'll put their link in the description below, and you can always leave any of your questions in the comments, and I'm really good at getting back to you guys. I love helping you problem solve, but I'm going to walk you through everything that you need to know to be able to install this system yourself. It truly is a do-it-yourself product. This is probably one of the best reverse osmosis systems I've ever installed, so I wanted to show you guys how to do it and just how easy it is. You can see right out of the box it comes with everything that you need to make the installation successful. It comes with different adapters, plenty of tubing, it comes with the grease that you need to grease up the O-rings. It comes with all the stuff that you need to install it today and also to maintain the system for many years.
And one of the first things that I wanted to point out was if you've ever had a reverse osmosis system installed, you remember how big they are. They require several canisters for the filtration and a giant air tank that takes up pretty much all the space underneath your sink. Comparing that to the Shell Water Systems, not only does it look amazing, but it takes up approximately 30% less space underneath your sink, and this was just one of the many reasons that we chose them.
So when installing your osmosis system, you're probably going to need to add a hole to your countertop. If this is not something you want to do, they do sell faucets that have a combination of a regular sink faucet and then the spigot for the osmosis. In my case, I went ahead and added a hole here to the countertop. If you need to do this, I'll put a separate video in the description below on how I did that, and I'll walk you through exactly how to cut through these quartz or stone countertops. You will also need a dedicated power source. I know not everybody has a dedicated outlet down here below the sinks. You may have one for the garbage disposal, but that is usually controlled only by a switch. So you will need a dedicated power source, and I had to go ahead and add one here below the sink. So again, I'll put a video for that as well. I'll show you how to actually run power from another outlet down to the location where you need it. Those videos will both be linked in the description. The system also comes with a diagram just showing you the general layout of what we're going to be doing. In short, the system taps off of your cold water system, goes through the osmosis filter. From there, it goes through the mineralizer, and then it goes up through the faucet at the top of our sink. So the hardest part here is really just getting the tap into the cold water line and then tapping the drain line into our current drain system that we have there under the sink. Not too complicated, just a couple easy steps. I'll walk you through every part of it. This is definitely something that you can do yourself. So this system really does come with everything that you need. They even give you the razor blade so that you can cut the tubing. The tubing is cut very easily. You just want to make sure it's cut straight. You just apply downward pressure, rock the blade a little bit so you can see that it starts to cut through, and then we just make our way through it. We got a clean cut. We don't really want it to be cut at an angle. You want it to be completely flat. So any of the tubing that we need to trim, we'll be doing it just like this. Very easy. And it's really cool that they give you the blade to actually do it yourself. They also give you a tool here to help you remove these plugs. Everything here is plugged. So for this larger one, I would use this horseshoe, and we're going to actually depress this ring down. We're going to push that down and then just wiggle lightly, and you can actually pull that plug out. So when you go to insert the tubing, you're going to be pushing the tubing in, and then you're going to usually have a blue clip that we will help push, and that actually lifts that ring back up, and it actually keeps that ring up so that we have constant pressure on here and the tube will not pull out. The only way that you're going to pull those tubes out is by, again, depressing it and then pulling up on the tube, and then you can get it out like that. So all of these with the tool, this is already up, so we're going to push it down and we can actually pull it out. And then when inserting the tubes, we push it down, and then we put the blue clip back in to help keep it locked. So one of the first things we're going to do is get our water feed three-way valve set up. You are going to take the nut off of the top where the valve is, and you can see there's a little tip right here that we need to get the 3/8 white tubing over. You got to boil some water and then soak the tip of this in the water for about 5 seconds. This just softens it up and helps make sure that it fits over it nicely. Put this back over. We're going to feed that over the tip. It goes over there easily, and then we're going to tighten this down with our wrench. And when tightening this, you don't need to over tighten it. It just needs to be very snug. You don't need to bottom this fitting out. It's going to be putting pressure on the outside of this tube, so you don't want to pinch it all the way through. So it does tell you, make sure that you do not over tighten this. So our next step is to actually get into our cold water system. So we're going to shut the water off and then take this fitting off. Then we will be putting this in line. This will go on to our original fitting from our house, and then the hose that we just disconnected will go on top of here, and this will continue our water source to our regular faucet, and then this taps off of it to our osmosis system. Then once we have this connected, we'll go ahead and put our original line back on. Most of these lines have a rubber gasket in there, so it doesn't require any Teflon tape. So most of these just need to be snugged down, and the rubber gasket inside there creates that watertight seal. So now we have our three-way water installed. That white line, the 3H line, will be supplying water to our osmosis system, and then the water continues through to the regular faucet that we have. And that is how you install the water tap. The next step, we're going to install the drain saddle onto our drain for our sink. This is the drain saddle. I'd recommend that once we drill our 1/4 inch hole, we are going to place the gasket, has an adhesive on one side, over the pipe, over the hole. We will line that up with the drain saddle, putting this on by hand first loosely, because if you see in the back here, this has a seat for the bolt in the back right here, that as you tighten it from the front, it'll sit in like that, and then we can just use a regular Phillips head screwdriver to tighten it. So once you get that set up loosely, we will then secure it, tightening evenly on both sides to apply even pressure onto the drain pipe with the gasket in between, and then we're going to insert the red pipe about 1.5 inches. It says 1.4 inches. You want it to go past the fitting into the actual drain line. So that's going to be just under 1.5 inches into that. So if you're not sure about that, I would actually mark the red tube tip, 1.4 inches or 1.5 inches, and that way you can insert it all the way, and you know that you've gone in enough. Once you have that inserted, we're going to put the blue clip on the ring, and that keeps it locked so that we don't ever compress the outside and accidentally pull on it. But they give you all these lock rings for everything. They give you everything in the kit to do it. You'll see here they have the lock rings that we remove or put in after we insert. All those blue rings go in there afterwards, and this kind of holds the place so that it locks that compression ring so nobody bumps it or pushes it down. So let's go ahead and locate a nice area for our drain saddle, and then we'll drill that 1/4 inch hole. It's ideal to put your drain saddle somewhere where you have a straight vertical place of pipe. Make sure that your drain saddle will sit somewhere around that. I'm actually going to do mine right here because I have enough flat surface to be able to drill my hole and then insert the drain line. I'll probably use this as a template just where to start, and then we will put the gasket over it and then put the drain saddle on it and start to tighten it down. Also, when you're drilling this, make sure that you don't put too much pressure forward so that you don't punch through the back of this pipe. We're then going to put the gasket on. We can then center this. Then we're ready to insert our red drain line. And so when you're tightening these bolts again, just make sure that you're tightening them evenly. Make sure that you have either both sides touching if the pipe is small enough to where it actually touches. Otherwise, make sure you have the same amount of reveal or gap on both sides. Tighten them, just kind of go back and forth. Once you have your red line inserted, we will go ahead and put that blue clip in there. And this just makes sure that that ring doesn't ever get compressed and this line doesn't come out. One of the next steps is getting our mineralizer ready. We're going to put these elbows in here, but first we have to remove the plugs. So once again, we're going to remove these blue clips, use the ring depressor to depress, and then pull out like that. And then once we have the plug removed, we can either just install our 1/4 inch drain lines and then install our clips again, or they also give you these elbows that you can insert to create more of a right angle in case you're working in a small space. But you don't have to use these elbows, but they do give you a few of them in case you want to kind of change the way that it lines up. But this can accept the line straight into it. So since we have enough room, I'm just going to go straight in with our 1/4 inch line without the elbows. One of the next things we're going to be doing is installing our actual faucet. I'm actually getting one of these that matches our brushed gold. The one that came with the system is a silver, but most of these spigots for reverse osmosis come with a 1/4 inch line and they will all work. So I'll put a link for this one also in there in case you want to find it. I've used this one and a couple other ones off of Amazon, so I'll put links for those. But the one that comes with it is awesome. We just wanted to be able to match it to our finished surfaces. So I'll be installing this one, but the installation is all the same. They come with a large washer to go up underneath. We're going to feed this through and then tighten up the washer and nut on the bottom. There is a little rubber gasket right here to help create a solid seat when we tighten it down, and then we'll have the line coming through, and this line will go into the outside of our mineralizer. And the way that this will go under the sink is we will do the washer first, then the spacer, then we'll do the smaller washer, then the lock washer with the nut on the end. And then once we have that installed, I'll kind of show you what it looks like when it's finished. So now we have our water line that's going to go into the system, our flush line. Then we have the water out up to our spigot. We can go ahead and put our unit in, and I'll show you how all of these lines connect so that we can get the whole system plugged together, and then we'll turn the power on, actually plug the power source in, and how to start it up. So before we get fully into this and get the system started, I want to go over a couple things while you have this system that a lot of people ask about. Is to be able to replace these cartridges, just want to make sure that you have the CP on top and the RO on the bottom. They're labeled 1 and 2, so we don't want to mix these up. If for whatever reason you were to replace one of these in the wrong position, it would actually lock the system up, and then we have to kind of reset the whole thing. The way to remove them is a little quarter turn to the left and it kind of pops out. And you can see it has a little groove right here at the top. So when you go to replace these, they have the model number and everything you can get from Shell Water Systems. You put them in to the side and you can feel it sit, and then you turn it and it actually sucks in and locks. Same thing goes for the RO, is you give it a half turn, pops out and pops in, and you can feel it actually lock in place. The other thing is replacing your mineralizer. This actually twists off. You can see that it just pops off of the top there. Then they give you a wrench that we can actually loosen this, and this is what we're going to be replacing, is a filter inside. So when you undo this, you'll see it has the O-rings here, which we use the food grade silicone to grease up. And then once we remove this, this is the filter that you'll actually be replacing. There's a larger O-ring here. This is where you want to go very liberal with the food grade silicone grease, because this is where you'll actually get those leaks. So a lot of people will say they put their system back together and it's leaking. It's usually because wherever there's an O-ring, they went too light with this stuff. So don't be afraid to put a lot of it on there. It's safe, it's food grade, but this is the most common problem. So once we have all this lubed up properly, we replace the filter back into the canister, tighten it down by hand, and then we use the wrench to tighten it the rest of the way. Once you have that secured back into the canister, we can go ahead and put the top back on. Just like that, we can replace the mineralizer. So these are the two different areas that a lot of people have questions with, or they might have a problem with the water leaking or which order to put these in. Just make sure that we don't mix these up. And then we can also make sure that we put plenty of this silicone grease on the gaskets whenever we're replacing it. So now that we have all of our lines ready to be connected, we're going to go ahead and remove any of these plugs. We can go install our water supply line. I also went ahead and installed this pressure regulator and make sure that the pressure is between 50 and 60 psi. Depending on what the pressure is in your house, you might want to install this in line. They do give this to you and it shows you the flow direction. And it just same thing, you just cut it, push it in, and put the clips in. Then we can insert this into our fittings. We'll put our blue clips in that lock the ring up. The waste line, the drain line, is our red here. Then we can go ahead and put in our line that goes to our mineralizer. Then we can take our line that goes to our faucet that we installed and push that into our water outlet. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually plug in this part of the power to the system, turn it around, and then when I have it all ready and the water turned on, because we want to make sure that the water is turned on first before we plug in the system, because as soon as we plug in the system and provide power to it, it's going to do a 30-second flush. So we want to make sure that that system has water going to it so that as soon as we plug it in, it's ready to go. Another thing that's really cool is that it comes with a water leak sensor. These have these little prongs in the bottom, and you plug this into the bottom right here where it says water leak sensor, and then this just sits on the ground inside of your cabinet. And if any water leaks just starts to build up inside of your cabinet, this thing will sense it with these little prongs and it'll shut the system down. It'll like actually cue it to stop. So this is actually a pretty cool feature that it detects any water leaks as well. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in here. And then I'll turn it around and I'll just set this somewhere on the ground out of the way so that it sits flat on the surface of my cabinet. So now I'm about ready to start the system. I'm going to probably move these things a little bit, but I first want to turn it on, make sure everything's running well, there's no leaks. Then I'll actually reposition the mineralizer a little bit better, but I want to be able to see the system kind of run first and go through the settings. So I'm going to turn the water on. Turn on the water slightly, turn it very slow, just kind of let it start to fill. You can hear the water flowing through the system and filling the tanks. I'm now going to plug this in. As soon as I plug this in, the system should do a 30-second flush. This is going to be doing a flush now. It's going to flush the water through the drain line. This is really cool. It's actually running the flush right now. You could feel it going through all the lines. I can see that there's no leaks. There's no leaks here where it flushes out. I don't see any leaks back there where I tapped into the water. But we don't use the space underneath here for too much, but if you had to, it does save a lot of space. So we have our system all together now. Everything is turned on. The water's turned on. The power's turned on. It's already done its cycle. I checked all my fittings, all my connections, made sure there's nothing leaking. I kind of moved the mineralization tank to the back right there. I put my power source right on top just to kind of save some space on the ground. I have my leak detection there on the bottom of the cabinet, some extra parts in the wrench. Just so you guys know, this mineralization tank I marked there on the bottom, 8 of 23. You're going to replace the mineralization about once every year. You're going to replace this one about once every year, once every 2 years. They also have indication lights there on the bottom that will help you understand how much water's gone through it and when you need to change those out. Everything can be found on Shell Water Systems website. And the way that these systems work is it actually produces water on demand, so you don't have that big tank there with all the pressure in it to help you pressurize the water. All you do is turn it fully on. It produces it. It's running there. You can hear it actually processing. And then when you turn it off, it shuts the system off just like that. So water on demand. One of the things they did mention is that make sure that you turn it all the way on or all the way off. That way it can actually run properly and have the right pressure going through the system. Just some little things to make sure it's working right for you. But this system looks great. Really happy with it. Hope you guys enjoy it as well. Any troubleshooting, let me know in the comments. I'm really good about getting back to all the questions there and help you work through any troubleshoots that you might need. But once again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave any questions you have for me in the comments below, and I'll see you guys on the next build.